Good evening, and welcome to the 1150th regular meeting and public hearing of the Livonia City Planning Commission. I wish to inform all interested persons in the audience that for petitions on tonight's agenda, which involve a question of zoning, the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the City Council, and the City Council, after holding their own public hearing, makes the final determination as to whether a petition is approved or denied. The Planning Commission holds the only public hearing on requests for preliminary plats and or vacating petitions. The Commission's recommendation is forwarded to the City Council for the final determination as to whether the petition is accepted or rejected. If a petition requesting a waiver of use or a site plan is denied tonight, the petitioner will have 10 days in which to appeal the decision in writing to the City Council. Resolutions adopted by the City Planning Commission will become effective 7 days after the date of adoption. The Planning Commission and professional staff have reviewed each of these petitions upon their filing. Staff has furnished the Commission with both approving and denying resolutions, which the Commission may or may not use, depending on the outcome of the proceedings tonight. If the Secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mrs. Smiley.
Present.
Mrs. McHugh.
Here.
Mr. Long.
Here.
Mr. Ventura.
Here.
Chair Magno is here. Chairman Wilshaw.
Is here. And also with us tonight, we have Mark Tormina and Stephanie Reese from our Planning Department. We also have Leo Neville from our City Attorney's Office. So thank you for being here. And again, I just want to remind each person in the audience that we'll, with each of these agenda items, we will start by getting background information from our Planning Department. We will then have the petitioner come forward and speak to the item. And then we'll have an opportunity for anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak for or against the item to also come forward. So with that, if the Secretary is ready, please start with item number 1.
Petition 2019-09-02-14 submitted by Arco Construction Company, Inc., requesting waiver use approval pursuant to Section 11.03N1 of the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543 as amended to construct and operate a senior assisted living facility, Clear Path Assisted Living, at 33579 8 Mile Road, located on the south side of 8 Mile Road between Farmington and Gill Roads in the northeast quarter of Section 4.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Tormina.
Thank you. Again, this is a request to construct and operate a senior assisted living facility. This property is located south of 8 Mile Road. It's just west of Farmington Road. As you can see from the zoning map, this is an L-shaped parcel. It is currently vacant. It was previously approved as the second phase of Northridge Commons shopping complex. The parcel is roughly 3.5 acres in area, and the zoning is C2 general business. Convalescent and nursing homes are allowed as a waiver use under section 11.03N of the zoning ordinance. The only special requirements that apply to this type of use is that the parcel must be at least 1 acre in size with an additional 500 square feet of land per bed. The subject 3.5 acre site is large enough to accommodate what is proposed on this site, which is a 58 bed facility. Looking immediately to the west of this property is the Northridge Commons Shopping Center, also Zone C2 General Business. Fronting along 8 Mile, directly north of the property, is a PNC Bank, as well as Four-Legged Friends Dog Daycare Center. And then to the east are a variety of commercial and office establishments. Immediately to the south is On the Pond Condominiums, which is zoned R7 multifamily. So proposed is a senior assisted living facility that would be 1 story in height. It would be 39,254 square feet in area. As you can see from this site plan, the building is positioned near the center of the site. Its setback from 8 Mile Road would be about 340 feet. And from the south property line adjacent to On the Pond condominiums, the setback would be about 88 feet. There is no direct access to this site from 8 Mile. Instead, access is relied upon via the existing drive aisles that are located within the shopping center. But there are easements for ingress and egress, as well as utilities and signage that are provided on the shopping center parcel in favor of this site. The complex, as I indicated, would have a total of 58 beds. This is divided into 54 units, included 40 assisted living units, as well as 14 memory care units. Amenities within the facility include several activity areas, There's a kitchen, living room, dining room, multi-purpose chapel, staff laundry, break rooms, as well as an outdoor courtyard. Parking is based on a requirement of 1 space for every 3 beds plus 1 space per employee. The proposed facility requires a total of 54 parking spaces. Shown on the site plan are 46 spaces. This includes 34 spaces that would be provided initially with the construction, and then there are additional 12 bank spaces at the south end of the property. These would not be developed as part of the construction, but could be should the need arise for the additional parking. I will note that the declaration of easement does provide a cross-parking agreement with the adjacent shopping center. The adjacent shopping center does have a surplus of parking available, so we do not anticipate that there would be any parking problems at this site. Exterior building materials include a combination of fiber cement siding or hardy plank plus cultured stone. As you can see from this rendering, it's a gabled roof. It would be finished with asphalt shingles. The height of the building altogether would be about 24 feet, 2 inches at its highest point. Back to the site plan, there's a single dumpster enclosure, which is shown behind the building along a service drive. This dumpster enclosure would be enclosed with 6-foot-high poured concrete walls that would have a simulated brick pattern. There's also ground-mounted equipment that would be located in the southwest corner of the building. That too would be screened with the use of cedar fencing. Landscaping overall represents about 50% of the site area, which exceeds our minimum standard, which is 15%. There is an existing detention basin located along the east side of the site that would be upgraded in order to accommodate this new development. A protective screen wall is required where this site lies adjacent to the residential district, which is to the south. There's an existing 6-foot-high concrete wall at that location currently that would be maintained. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to read out the correspondence that we received on this item.
Yes, please.
First is a letter from our engineering division that is dated September 25th, and it reads, "In accordance with your request, the engineering division has reviewed the above referenced petition. We have no objections to the proposed waiver use at this time. The existing parcel is assigned the address of 33579 8 Mile Road. The legal description provided with the petition appears to be correct and should be used in conjunction with this petition. The existing site is currently serviced by public sanitary and water main that may need to be relocated based on the proposed layouts. Storm sewer detention is indicated, and the owners have been in contact with this department and are aware of the utility requirements for the proposed development. A full engineering review will be done when plans are submitted to this department for permitting. If needed, any work within the 8 Mile Road right-of-way will require a permit from the Wayne County Department of Public Services." That letter is signed by David Lear, Assistant City Engineer. Next, we have a letter from the Livonia Fire and Rescue Division dated October 11th, and it reads, "This office has reviewed the site plan submitted in connection with a request to construct and operate a senior living facility on property located at the above referenced address. We have no objections to this proposal with the following stipulations. Number 1, subject building is to be provided with an automatic sprinkler system, and on-site hydrants shall be located between 50 feet and 100 feet from the fire department connection. Number 2, fire department access roads shall be designed and maintained to support the imposed loads of fire apparatus and provide an adequate all-weather driving surface. 3, access around the building shall be provided for emergency vehicles with a minimum vertical clearance of 13 feet 6 inches and a turning radius of 53 feet wall-to-wall and an inside turning radius of 29 feet 6 inches. 4, fire lanes shall be provided for all buildings that are set back more than 150 feet from a public road or exceed 30 feet in height and are set back over 50 feet from a public road. 5, a fire access road shall be provided with not less than 20 feet of unobstructed width and have a minimum of 13 feet 6 inches of vertical clearance in accordance to 18.23411 of NFPA 2015. Fire lanes shall be marked with wall or pole-mounted signs that have the words "Fire Lane, No Parking" painted on both sides for pole mount, or single-sided for wall mount in contrasting colors at a size and spacing approved by the authority having jurisdiction. 7, commercial kitchen hood and duct fire suppression shall be UL 300 system and comply with NFPA 96. And 8, building shall be protected by an automatic sprinkler system. That letter is signed by Greg Thomas, city's fire marshal. Next is a letter of no objection coming from the Division of Police dated September 27th and signed by Brian Lee, Sergeant of the Traffic Bureau. A letter of no objection from the Inspection Department dated October 21st, signed by Jerome Hanna, Director of Inspection. A letter of no objection coming from the Department of Finance dated September 25th and signed by Connie Kumpula. And then lastly, a letter of no objection from the Office of Treasurer dated September 27th and signed by Linda Shield, Treasurer of the City of Livonia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taormina. Do we have any questions for our planning staff? I don't see any. The petitioner is here. If you'd like to come forward to one of the podiums, you can tell us about your project. Good evening.
Good evening.
We ask that you start with your name and address for our record.
So I'm Jim Eisenhart. I'm a principal and owner with the development team for this project. It's going to be an assisted living and memory care. This will be our 4th project in Michigan. We have 13 of these across the Midwest. I wanted to bring my team here. We have some members with the construction team and with our operations that could answer any questions. We did get some questions regarding materials for the building. I think we tried to address some of those questions and tried to put a little more brick or stone onto the building. We also have had some questions regarding the operations of when people break and when shifts happen. So I just was going to open it up so that we can answer those.
Okay. Is there any questions for our petitioner? Mrs. Smiley.
Just one, I'm looking at the, you put the cultured stone all around the trash enclosure, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and then you added some cultured stone on the west elevation,
Yeah.
or more, I should say.
This is John Albel with Arco Construction.
Okay.
We added more stone, about 30%, 40% more stone on the north elevation, and the
Okay.
same on the west elevation, as those are the prominent elevations that are visible as you come into the building and around to the service entrance.
And I see there's a little bit on the east elevation, so that must be,
Do you have the 3D elevation?
am I reading that right? Yeah.
So what we tried to do here is provide a 3D and to best illustrate the two sides of the building that you'll actually see.
Okay,
And to John's point, we were trying to, at our meeting, we talked about potentially putting a ribbon around the entire center. And we thought it would be a better use of the dollars to put more stone up on the visible areas and bring it up, and go higher. And so to John's point, is it 40% more stone that we put there? And we have some samples of what that stone would look like.
Exterior finishes right here, just to give you a better idea of what those colors look like.
but you went three-quarter, I mean, like, I think I would have taken it off the dumpster and put it more on the building. Although, I mean, the cultured stone on the dumpster as, I know you wanted of a like thing, but who's seeing the dumpster?
Well, we would prefer not to have it on the dumpster. We were trying to accommodate the request that you wanted something beyond just wood around the dumpster. So we
Yeah,
were just trying to put
we definitely do want something, but I'm just saying if you have very limited cultured stone, I wouldn't have put, if the dumpster's in the back, I take it.
right.
Yeah, I wouldn't have spent all my stone on the dumpster.
And that might end up being like a split-face CMU masonry. It's preliminary design right now as we finish up these and work with your requests on materials and locations, and we'll still work with our interior designer on finalizing those areas and colors.
We were trying to make a good faith effort to put more stone on the front, and if there's tweaks that we still need to do, we're open to those suggestions.
Okay, good, and you want to show us your samples? That would be great.
Yeah, how would you like to?
If you can
You
just
can-
put them up and then go on the camera, that's fine.
Yeah, you can hold them up at the podium there.
Okay.
That way our
Yep.
camera operators will be able to see it.
Price is right, Seth?
You got it.
Hold that one for me.
All right.
So yeah, cultured stone, and then we have a black shingle with party colors as represented.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, one note that we'll say is we had this designed with a two-dimensional rendering, and in an attempt to do this, there wasn't a lot of time to coordinate all of the different colors. So we do feel like there's a lot of red that's supposed to be a highlight, so we'd probably come back and try to even that out a little bit. But so we spent more time trying to get more stone onto the building than coloring the hardy board concrete siding that we have.
We're big on brick or cultured stone in the city, and that, I appreciate your effort to put more on there. And so, yeah, less red maybe and more stone would be great. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mrs. Smiley. Any other questions or comments for our petitioner? Mr. Long?
Thank you. In the letter from the fire marshal, it talked about the need to have, I don't have the letter in front of me, so it's not gonna be a direct quote, but the access road all the way around. And your current design does not have that, correct?
It does not, correct. And
Okay, is that something that you're going to be able to work out?
probably not on that site, but
Okay.
I haven't seen the letter, so I'm not exactly sure what it's, go ahead, Mark, sorry.
Mark's got something.
So, Mark, am I correct in did I hear the letter correctly? I think it said, and it was number 3, right? Access around building shall be provided for emergency vehicles.
Yeah, so I did have a conversation with the fire marshal on this issue. I wanted to confirm with him that changes made to the site plan based on a pre-application meeting that we held with the various departments that they had responded to that. The fire marshal, while he was not able to confirm precisely that the changes made would meet all of their requirements, he is fully aware that this site will not provide 360-degree access around the building in terms of a driveway. He is more concerned with extending that Y turnaround on the east side of the building such that they can get full coverage.
Okay.
They have an extended ladder that can easily reach all points of this building with probably just a slight modification to that design and without the need to go fully around the building. The fact that this is a single-story building, the fact that they do have some flexibility in extending that driveway, he felt confident that at the time of permit review, he'd be able to address any remaining concerns they have regarding the geometrics of that driveway design.
Great, thank you. Mr. Chairman, if I continue, a couple of, we spoke at the study meeting about your shift changes and what the standard operating procedure. Could you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yeah, I'm going to introduce Andrew Kennard. Andrew is the Senior VP of Operations for our operator that
Okay.
runs the place.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So in general, this particular community, once stabilized occupancy-wise, which be about 85%, we'll have a staff on a daily basis of around 25 to 30 FTEs in the building. First shift, which in general will run about 7 to 3, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., we'll have about 15 people. At around 2:30 to 3:30, you'll have a shift change of about 6 to 8 people in general is what we'll see at the community. And then at 11 p.m., you'll see about another 6 to 8 people come and go at that time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The parking, obviously your employees are gonna need parking. Your clients, your tenants, I mean, they're not going to have cars, I would assume, being in an assisted live.
On average, it's a great question. On average, we see about 10 to 15% of our residents still have a vehicle.
Okay.
Many times they're actually just parked there. It's kind of, it's a way when they move into the community to still have their independence. But then subsequent, pretty quickly after that, 3 to 6 months, they quickly learn that they no longer, need the car.
Okay. And obviously, each individual case will differ, but your average stay for a tenant is
About 18 months.
about 18 months?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And the, well, we talked about the shift change. Well, I'm going to cede the floor, Mr. Chairman, with the right to call back if I need to.
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Long. Any other questions for our petitioner? Mrs. Smiley?
So your assisted living, is this skilled nursing?
No.
No.
Sorry, go ahead, no, go ahead.
No, okay.
It's not, it's a private pay assisted living that memory care falls under assisted living. Not, it's all 100% private paid, no use of Medicaid or Medicare.
Okay, so there's no nurses there?
There are, and I'll,
Yeah.
not at the same level as a nursing care, or nursing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, correct. So typically what we'll have is a wellness director, and that is part of the management team. And he or she will typically be an RN or an LPN. And then as the building fills up, we'll have an additional nurse that will cover the second shift, kind of in a supervisory role and providing nursing care.
And even for the memory care people, are they in a restricted area, so they're not able to leave?
Yeah, correct. So it is fully contained and completely secure neighborhood. I think 14 units, and it will have a secured courtyard area as well.
So there's no hospice or end of life or any of that kind of stuff going on?
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Any other questions for our petitioner? Mr. Long?
Sorry, I did recall my last one. On the material board that you have there, so is the bottom sample, is that the red that we saw on the picture earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, because I mean, at least from this distance, yeah, I'd like to see it up close, because it looks quite different than, yeah, almost brownish as compared to the red. And, yeah, it looks much different. So that was my final question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's why it's nice having these hot studio lights. We can see
That's all right.
everything lit up. All right.
If I could, Ms.
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
You asked a question about hospice.
Yes.
It is not care that our facility will provide. This is no different than if somebody had their own independent apartment, and if they wanted to hire hospice to come in and provide that service for them at their apartment, they could do that. But it's
Okay.
not gonna be a service that is our company's offering,
Okay.
practice. So there's a level of care where you have to have the ability to function and leave and be able to get out of a facility if there happened to be a fire or
That was, okay.
that separates us from skilled nursing where folks are not they're a little more, have a higher acuity and not mobile.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for making that distinction. Do we have any other questions for our petitioner?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ventura?
I recall that most of the mechanical equipment for the building is going to be ground-mounted with the exception of a vent fan for the kitchen area, is that correct?
That is correct, but we have the ability to ground mount that as well and keep and contain that in the enclosure as we've done that on other facilities. So that's the route we're assuming at this point.
Okay, so it'll be on the ground and
Yes.
not be on the roof?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ventura. Mr. Tormina, did you have?
Yeah, I think I just answered, at least, going through the plans, the question I was going to ask, and that is on the north elevation, whether or not this was illustrating the number of openings and the two end wings, if you will, the parts of the building that flank the porte cochere don't show any openings, and those are units within the facility. Those are, and the windows, the openings for those units are on the side and not on they're not facing the main entry. So, I believe I confirmed that on the floor plan right here.
Yep, you are correct. And what we've done there is kind of put like columnar landscaping bushes to kind of spruce up that front elevation.
Yeah, and I'll point that to the planning commission. The renderings that we're looking at here, these really don't tell the full story. The landscape plan, if you refer to that, show substantial foundation plantings that will kind of soften the appearance of the building all the way around, so just point that out. That it's something that's not depicted on the renderings.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. Thank you.
Mark, we had a long discussion about improving the quality of our renderings. There is a full vestibule with glass that if you saw in our pictures of our previous projects that we showed at the last meeting, it's very obvious of where the entrances for the building is. We'll do a better job of getting the rendering to depict that, but our previous projects showed that with existing projects.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenhart. Any other questions for our petitioner?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Caremagno.
This is for Mark and potentially the petitioner as well. Mark, how high is the brick? How high is that stonework on the building? It looks to be real.
The wainscot,
The stone, whatever you want to call the stonework around the lower level.
the height of that is probably,
3 feet.
yeah, okay, that answers it.
So that's 3 feet tall around the edges. And then the, back by the dumpster enclosure, to the left of there, we talked at the study session about the fencing. Are you saying this is all cement fence now instead of, or is this still cedar fence right here?
Around the equipment enclosure, as of now, is cedar fencing, 8-foot cedar fencing.
Okay.
A follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Tormino.
I just want to confirm the height of that wainscot, because it's showing the textured stone veneer wall on these on these section views as being 2 feet, not 3 feet. Was that a change?
I will confirm that. I don't have the answer on why that is, but it was my understanding that there were 3 feet on previous facilities, so I will follow up with that. But yeah, you are correct. It shows 2 foot.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Tormino. Mr. Caremagno.
Mr. Chair, and that's why I asked. It just looks like it's very low. Now you talk about putting bushes or shrubs in front of this. Next thing you know, you can't, all the stonework here, you can't even see it. It'll be covered up. So, as I said in the study session, I certainly want more stone, want more brick, want more concrete here, and this doesn't quite do it for me. I just want to make that very clear right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caremagno. Any other questions for the petitioner before we go to the audience? I don't see any other questions for our petitioner. Thank you, Mr. Eisenhart and team, for coming. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this item? Again, one last time, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this item? I don't see anyone coming forward, so I will close the public hearing, and a motion is in order.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Caremagno.
as to not kill this, at least from my vantage point, I'd offer a tabling motion for them to come back with some more stone on this building, brick on this building. I think we made it pretty clear we don't like the cedar fencing around the equipment last time we were here, and yet we're still seeing that, so I'd offer a tabling motion.
Is there support?
I'll support that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and Mr. Caremagno, are you looking to table this to our next regular meeting?
I am, I think it's fixable.
Okay.
In my mind, fixable with a little more effort.
Okay, usually with tabling, we like to give some indication of the timing. Mr. Tormina, did you,
No, just confirming the next date, the next meeting date is, the study is November 12th, and the voting meeting is the 19th of November.
so we'll have a study on the 12th and regular on the 19th. And that's because we have the next couple of weeks off. So, so the motion by Mr. Caremagno is to table this item until our next regular meetings, which will be November 12th and for the study, and the 19th for a regular meeting. There is no discussion on tabling motions. Again, that was also supported by Mr. Ventura. So if the secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Caremagna votes aye. Mr. Ventura?
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley?
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Chairman Wilshaw?
Votes aye. And motion passes. The item has been tabled. Again, the dates are November 12th for a study meeting upstairs, and then 19th for the meeting down here. So we'll see you at that next set of meetings. Thank you for coming. And we will move on to item number 2 on our agenda.
Petition 2019-08-06-02, submitted by the City Planning Commission pursuant to Council Resolution Number 293-19 and Section 23.01A of the Livonia zoning ordinance as amended to determine whether or not to amend Section 18.42A of the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543 as amended, which regulates wireless communication facilities by removing the governing of small cells and creating a new zoning ordinance, Section 18.42B, that would oversee the rules and technology of small cells.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Toromina.
Thank you. This proposed language amendment is intended to establish standards for regulating small cell wireless facilities in compliance with recently enacted state law, which in large part preempts local authority over such uses. In July, City Council enacted Chapter 6 of Title 12 of the Code of Ordinances for the purpose of providing procedural rules and other standards directly related to small cell wireless facilities. The proposed changes involving the zoning ordinance are twofold. First, Section 18.42A would be amended to exclude small cell wireless facilities from the rules that currently apply to other forms of wireless communication facilities. And second, Section 18.42B would be added as a new section that would be specific to small cell applications. It is the intent of these ordinances to provide the city with the maximum authority available under the restrictions imposed by the new state law. From a land use perspective, what primarily distinguishes small cell wireless facilities from other forms of wireless communication is the size of the equipment. Small cell wireless antennas and equipment are much smaller and operate under different technology that requires closer spacing between the cells. Hence, the facilities are typically placed on shorter structures, such as existing utility poles, or on dedicated new poles that are 40 feet or less in height, as opposed to traditional cell towers, which are typically 120 feet in height. In terms of local zoning, the Small Wireless Communications Facilities Deployment Act, or PA 365 of 2018, generally exempts small cell wireless facilities from zoning review. Exceptions exist in cases where the equipment exceeds a certain size, the height of a support pole is above 40 feet, or the small cell adds more than 5 feet to the height of a pole. Act 365 imposes limits on fees that a city can charge, as well as time restrictions. Because of this, the ordinance specifies that a single authority responsible for reviewing the applications is the city engineer. Aesthetics can be considered in circumstances where a small cell facility is proposed in a residential district, within the PRDA district along Plymouth Road, or within an established historic district. But for this to occur, the city must establish written objective requirements for reasonable, technically feasible, non-discriminatory, and technologically neutral designs or concealment measures, and that's straight out of the statute. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will answer any questions you may have. Mr. Neville is here this evening to assist in the discussion as well.
Thank you, Mr. Toromina. And because this is the Planning Commission's own motion or petition, we don't have a petitioner to come forward on this
Correct.
item, so we'll go directly to the commission, if there's any questions of the commission, of either our planning director or of our law department. Anyone? I don't.
Good evening.
We'll start with Mrs.
Thank
Smiley.
you for coming, and it's my understanding that the state is regulating this and that the city cannot override the state.
Correct. In fact, the state statute is modeled after the federal statute. And under the state statute, even though technically under our state constitution, local authorities have the right to regulate, zoning, the state has essentially taken much of that authority away from us, as Mr. Toromino said, except for limited circumstances. And essentially, those deal with the height of the utility pole and the extension if the small cell facility is placed on top of the utility pole. So, in short, we have very little discretion other than with respect to those limited measures. So we have to follow state statute, which
Okay.
preempts local the local authorities' ability to regulate this area.
Which came from the feds.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Ms. Smiley. Mr. Ventura?
Again, for Mr. Neville. So as I understand Mr. Tormina's recitation of the regulations that we're going to write, this committee, this planning commission will never see any of the applications to erect these small cells. It'll all be handled by the engineering department.
By the engineering department,
And
correct.
so it'll never appear on an agenda here. The public will never have an opportunity to come before us and object or comment. This is all going to be out of our purview. Is that correct?
I would say unless somebody wanted to erect a utility pole that was in excess of the 40 feet or go above the 5 feet extension on the utility pole, but you are correct. The engineer will have that authority to approve those applications for the small cell facilities.
As long as they don't go across one of
Correct.
the few
Absolutely.
lines that they've drawn for them.
Right?
Thank you, Mr. Neville. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ventura. Any other questions for our staff? We do have some folks in the audience who I believe wish to speak on this item, so I'll give them an opportunity. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this item is welcome to come forward. And again, just like the previous petition, we ask that you start with your name and address for our record.
Yep. Sorry.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Rachel Midda, 19488 Osmus. I didn't quite understand all that, but I do know that small cells were on the agenda, so I wanted to be here because I'm very concerned about them. I've noticed the small cells on the rights of ways on some of our major roads already, and it's very concerning. Some of them are right in front of people's homes. They have no idea what they're going to be exposed to. 5G is the 5th generation for wireless communication. It uses small cells for radio frequency transmissions. It's estimated that 5G will use between 24 to 90 gigahertz frequencies, where 3 and 4G is at 1 to 6 gigahertz. 5G is designed to deliver concentrated and focused electromagnetic radiations up to 100 times more than current levels. In 2011, the World Health Organization classified wireless as a group 2B carcinogen. The U.S. and Canada have the highest safety limits compared to other countries. Our safety limits are 61.5 volts per meter, while the limit in Russia, China, Italy, Switzerland is 6 volts per meter. It's quite the contrast. In December 2018, despite expert testimony explaining the dangers and opposition from city governmental officials, SB 637 and 894 were signed into law. The law helps enable wireless technology providers to increase their capacity, streamline regulations, and lay the groundwork for future technologies such as 5G. It also diminished local government's ability to be compensated for the costs of right-of-ways, and it leaves the costs up to taxpayers when the private company should be responsible for the costs. This push came from the federal government with the FCC's recently mandated small cell implementation in our cities. Even though the Telecommunications Act of 1996 allows for more control from the private companies over the voices of the taxpayers, the voters, and the scientists, the language was codified in Section 704 of the Telecommunications Act, which prohibits discussion of environmental concerns or health concerns in the placement of cell towers. While the industry and the government would have you believe EMFs are safe, there are over 1,000 studies and scientific research showing EMFs can increase cancer, mutagenic effects, it prevents healing, it increases hormonal changes, it alters brain development, it causes neurological symptoms, sleep problems, sperm damage, headaches, dizziness, and more. There's also research showing the negative environmental effects will include a drastic decline in our bees and birds. Not to mention, they'll have to cut down all our trees because they have to be able to communicate with each other. So they're talking like every 200 to 500 feet, someone is gonna have a cell tower in their backyard, and we don't have a say. I'm asking you to do everything in your power to fight for the citizens of Livonia. Protect us from this unwanted, unnecessary RF radiation. We do not need 5G. Fiber optics is faster and it's more reliable. Allow safe technology. Reject unsafe and untested technologies. There are safe tech groups throughout our state, the nation, the world, and they are helping cities get educated. They're helping them establish ordinances, and they are teaching them how to fight back to regain their local control. One of the organizations is called ProTech, and that stands for the Michigan Coalition to Protect Public Rights of Ways. And that was founded after the changes in the Michigan laws. They also have a current lawsuit in the 9th District against the FCC. And there's a lot of cities and townships that are joining ProTech. And I'm asking you guys to also do the same. I'd like to give you guys this as well. I'm also asking you to consider passing a resolution stating that Livonia supports legislation for an immediate moratorium on small cell installations in Michigan's public right-of-ways until safe RF radiation levels are established for long-term exposures. Thank you for your consideration and for looking out for the health of the citizens.
Thank you, Mrs. Maddow. If you want to hand that over to Mr. Neville, I think he'll.
Yeah, and I have a draft of a resolution.
Okay. And just so you know, we're at the Planning Commission. Our role is to start the process of a ordinance change, and we review the language that's been presented to us and approve that it, or make a recommendation that it be approved or denied to the city council. The city council is the one that will ultimately have to review this and make that decision. And they would be the ones that could also enact legislation or ask for moratoriums and things like that, so.
Because we're not powerless, we can do things. We can do
Yes.
things to stop this. I have a utility pole in my backyard, and I won't be here if a small cell comes on it. I grew up here from 8 years old, I'm 44 now, and I will leave, because I'm not gonna be exposed to that.
I understand, and I definitely understand your concerns are valid, but I just want you to understand the process that we're going to go through, because what I'm going to do at the end is recommend that you also attend the city council meeting
I will
and
be
speak to the council, because they're ultimately going to make the decision.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Ms. Maddow. Good evening, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Amy Chavalia, 18997 Gary Lane. Rachel touched on a lot of the key points that all of us are very concerned about. I'm a very health-conscious mom. I have 2 daughters. My youngest has special needs. So I've pretty much changed our whole lifestyle since we discovered her special needs. We eat healthy. We buy organic. We don't allow any chemicals into our home. We don't drink. We don't smoke. Pretty much a non-toxic life. And so when I was informed about 5G, and I learned that these small cells could be installed right on the light posts across from my house, it's been keeping me up at night. I feel like if I wake up and find one of these and my family is exposed 24/7 to these harmful levels of radiation, which are totally different from 2, 3, and 4G, my right to keep my family healthy has been taken away from me. I really, I love Livonia. I've lived in Livonia my whole life. I've worked in Livonia. I worked for Livonia schools. I'm raising my family in Livonia. Livonia schools are amazing. I've always considered Livonia as a wonderful city to raise a family. But if I have one of these small cells in front of my house, I will be moving. Livonia needs to continue to be a safe place to raise a family. And if we want to keep moving Livonia forward, keeping people in Livonia, we can't make people sick. We can't watch our kids come down with cancer and neurological disorders. Unborn babies are going to be very susceptible. They're predicting, scientists are coming forward, doctors are coming forward expressing their concerns over 5G radiation and the effect it's going to have on our health. Unborn babies, children, their skulls are thinner. They're predicting babies will be born with numerous neurological disorders on top of the rise in autism and other neurological disorders we're already seeing. They've already established that cell phone radiation is harmful to our health. 5G takes it one step further. And whether or not we use 5G, whether or not we buy 5G adaptable phones, if we have a small cell in our neighborhood, we're exposed 24/7. We have zero control over that. I just wanted to express my concern, and I hope that you will take this into consideration and do what's best for the citizens of Livonia. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chalio. Good evening.
Good evening, I'm Sherry Prush, 9090 Lathers. First of all, thank you for explaining the process, but we felt it was important to come and speak, not only to you guys, we do plan on attending city council meetings as well. This is gonna be hard for me to talk about. 5G is very scary to me. I have 4 little girls. 2 of them have autism. One of them is severely compromised and has autoimmune encephalitis. So little things affect her in a huge way, you know, and we do have a pole in our yard. We do have a pole. I have every reason to believe there will be a tower, you know, a cell tower there if they're able to put it there. I'm really sad at the way our government has gone. I understand that a lot of your control has been taken. And I'm here to just beg you to find ways to take it back. Livonia is a great place to live. I did not grow up here. I chose to raise my family here. My husband and I, we moved here away from all of our families and our workplaces, specifically for the community of Livonia. And hearing this, I mean, life, I was telling somebody today, my daughter's in a medical setback right now. Life is pretty difficult. I cannot imagine what will happen to my household if there is a 5G tower anywhere near her. I cannot imagine what will happen next. I'm scared for the citizens, for even the healthy ones to become ill, but the ones who are already affected by the environmental changes that we've seen over the last, last few decades, I'm terrified what will happen to my daughter, specifically when these 5G cell towers go up. And the exposure, like Amy said, even if I choose not to buy the products, which I'll choose not to use the products, but if that tower is in my backyard so my neighbors can use the products, I don't have a choice anymore. And things for our family will get much, much worse, as well as the other citizens. So I'm just really hoping that you guys take this into consideration and, we can work together as a community to find a different way. And again, we will definitely speak to City Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Prush. Appreciate your comments. Good evening, ma'am.
Thanks. Good evening. My name is Audrey Rodgers, and I live at 36937 Ladywood Street here in Livonia. And like those who have already spoken, I have huge concerns about 5G rolling in for myself and for my children, for our future. We don't know enough about the consequences of 5G. The regulations that are put in place currently, and they were put in place in the 1990s, were based largely on scientific data from the 1980s on rats. That's not enough. There's a group of scientists, over 240 scientists, who have put out a statement saying that they want the FCC to update the regulations, have stronger exposure limits. And here's part of a statement that they said. Numerous recent scientific publications have shown that EMFs affect living organisms at levels well below most international and national guidelines. Effects include increased cancer risk, cellular stress, increase in harmful and free radicals, genetic damage, structural and functional changes of the reproductive system, learning and memory deficits, neurological disorders, and negative impacts on general well-being in humans. Damage goes well beyond the human race, as there is growing evidence of harmful effects to both plant and animal life. This is hugely concerning, and sometimes it may seem like there isn't something to do because things are just rolling too fast, but this is where people need to stand up and put forth efforts in new mandates, updating the information, getting better information, because this is our future. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Rogers.
Hi, my name is Mandy Ordaz. My address is 30797, yeah, Bob Rich Street. And my husband and I moved here maybe five years ago to Livonia for the schools, for the community, as has been mentioned. And we, a couple years ago, went through the whirlwind of buying our forever home through that crazy, like it was the hottest market in the nation. And we found one, and we're so excited to raise our 4 boys, the youngest of whom also has special needs. He suffers from a severe, life-threatening form of epilepsy, actually. It's caused by a genetic mutation. There's no cure. It's very resistant to medications. So, and as has been mentioned already, he's also very sensitive to anything. A seizure can be triggered by fever, by illness, by being tired, by a storm, by the full moon, by eating a potato chip, you name it. So I don't even want to know what this technology is going to do to him. I've already noticed that he is sensitive to just electromagnetic frequencies from cell phones and computers, etc. I just don't even want to try. You know, it scares me to think what might happen to him for this. It's a life-threatening condition that there's nothing else I can do. He's 10 years old. We've tried everything. So I just want to echo what has been said, that we need to treat this serious and with caution. I'm curious, you know, we've heard that the state really has passed the laws, but what can we as a city do? And you've explained, obviously, the city council is part of it. So if you could clarify just a little bit more, how would we go about this? What can we do?
Well, ma'am, the process that we're undergoing is, as I understand it, Mr. Neville can probably speak a little bit more to this. The state has required that communities pass and enact some sort of an ordinance to deal with small cells.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding is, and again, I'm going to ask Mr. Neville to talk a little bit more about it, but the ordinance that has been prepared and presented to us is strong a language as I believe is possible under the state law and under what the FCC has mandated that we can pass. We literally can't enact something more stringent for small cells. That being said, it's not very stringent because our hands are very tied by both the state and FCC, thanks to lobbyists and whoever else has caused that to be. So, Mr. Neville, I'm just going to again ask that is my generalization of this ordinance accurate, and is there anything else that can be done? Certainly not necessarily by us as a planning commission, but a city council or the city as a whole regarding small cells.
Unfortunately, the short answer is no. Our concern is that if, by not passing, our ordinance is this area is essentially preempted by state law, which is preempted by federal law. And the legislature and the federal government have just carved out, essentially, maybe it's just the tip of the, nod of the head to the local communities, but they've given us a limited amount of room in order to regulate what's going on in this industry. And the fear is that if we don't pass this ordinance, then we don't have any ability to have a say into this, because then, the state is just going to essentially
Regulate it.
overrule anything that we may want to do. And I might be speaking out of turn here, or maybe it's not my position to say, but Haley Stevens is holding a public hearing here on Friday morning
Okay.
in the the whole idea behind it is to address the small cell facilities. And so probably a great opportunity for residents to come and perhaps, to speak out and perhaps have a say as to what opportunities or what options the local community might have, and more importantly, what the state might be able to do. And that's going to be held here at City Hall at 10 o'clock on Friday, October 25th. So
Cool.
this
Okay.
came to my attention this afternoon, and so I wanted to share it with the Planning Commission. And so this is probably
Okay.
another forum in which people can come forward and at least have a say in this area.
Thank you.
But as the chairman has indicated, we really have very little
Very little.
room, if anything, to,
So this ordinance is basically, you're wanting to alter it just because it's geared for the big cell towers?
this is for the 5G, because the small cell facilities are different than the traditional telecom facilities. And the state statute has enacted Public Act 365, which addresses the small wireless communication facilities. And so we decided that, we needed to pass an ordinance that would address that. And that's why we have 1842B, I believe is our ordinance, as well as 120506 in the Code of Ordinances. So our ordinance is essentially designed to mirror what the state statute is, which was modeled a lot after the federal statute on the issue, so.
Okay, thank you for the information and for giving us the time to speak and listen. Thank you.
Oh, definitely. And Mr. Neville, thank you for pointing out that informational meeting that's going to be available. Any public information that we can give to people is great.
All right, my pleasure.
Hi, my
Hi,
name
good
is
evening.
Gina Wheaton, 10945 Stark Road. I wasn't planning on speaking today, but I'm here because I'm passionate about this issue. There's a cell tower, a 5G cell tower, 100 yards from my home. I have 4 small children, 9, 6, 2, and 8 months. I'm a registered nurse. I work here in the city. My husband owns a greener method. It's a carpet cleaning. We use all chemical-free, all plant-based cleaning products. We're really, really, really passionate about organic and keeping things fresh and clean. So when I heard about this, it just really, 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 really got me going. So I'm here for the first time. I grew up in Livonia. I just wanted to say that the notion that exposure to radio frequency microwave radiation, the notion that it's not harmful to humans, which has been the underlying principle of all of the federal regulation regarding wireless technologies for more than 20 years, is now been proven false. It's false. So you're saying that you're hearing it come down from the federal and the state, but it's wrong. So I think as a community, as people of the community, we want to see change, and there has to be a way. So there has to be a way for us to speak out. I think all these people are elected by the community in which they live in to represent us at the state level, to represent us every which way. So there has to be a way that we can collectively create a voice loud enough for them to hear us. And just for everyone else's information, Haley Stevens is also going to be at a Livonia Chamber of Commerce event at St. Mary's Cultural Center on the 1st of November at 11:30. For those of you that maybe can't make it this week, because I know I'll be out of town, but I will be there talking to her, and I will be at this meeting, I'll be at the next meeting, I will be at every single meeting. I will fill this auditorium. I just don't underestimate the power of like a mom who feels threatened. So that's
Definitely
it.
understood. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, good evening. You're welcome to speak.
Good evening. Rosalie Teslarix, 9655 Farmington Road. I have a question. How many of these antennas have already been installed in Livonia? And is there a schedule for the implementation of the others? And what is the saturation point in this city? I guess that's 3 questions. Okay.
It is 3 questions. We'll see what we can answer for you. Mr. Toromina, there are some already in the city, and I believe there's some pending applications. Do you have any feel for how many antennas have been erected at this point?
The number installed, I'm unable to verify. Based on information from our engineering division, they have issued a total of 8 permits. A few of them, I am aware, have been installed. But driving around the city, checking a few others, I noticed that they had not yet been constructed. There are a few in the pipeline, I think 4 or 5 additional antennas. This covers a single carrier. The other carriers, a couple of other carriers have indicated their interest in beginning deployment and are in the early stages of discussing this with the city. There is no schedule that we are aware of. That is probably something each provider has separately. They have a schedule for how they're going to deploy this throughout the community and communities. So that's pretty much it.
You're
What would
right.
be considered, excuse me?
Go ahead,
What would
ma'am.
be considered the saturation point?
Well, that's the question I was going to try to address for you. And I don't know that there's a good answer for that, because the two questions that Mr. Toromina, or the one that Mr. Toromina just wrapped up with, which was a schedule, is really dependent on the carrier and what they decide is the customer demand and the consumer demand to put these in. The more demand there is for it, the faster they're going to want to put them in, that type of thing. And as far as the saturation point, again, I don't know that we're qualified to answer that, because it depends on what range that each of these facilities can accomplish and how many devices that they can accommodate and so on. We saw the same thing with regular cell phone towers. When they started to go up, they started popping up throughout the city, and then eventually they started coming back and saying, well, we need infill locations, we need smaller towers to fill in gaps and so on. And so it's constantly adjusting. I don't know that there's ever really quite a saturation point. So I don't know that I can give you a definitive answer on that. It's really going to be for the RF engineers and the people that understand this technology better. But needless to say, we are definitely at the early onset of this technology, and we're obviously nowhere close to a saturation point yet, because as I understand it, these towers have a very, very limited range. So there's going to be a lot of them.
It seems to me that if you have one, it's saturation. You don't need any more. Okay? There's much more scientific evidence. Its previous scientific evidence has just been contradicted. We need more. I would rather stand still than be caught rolling down a hill that seems to have no bottom. Thank you.
That's an excellent point. Thank you, ma'am.
I just wanted to.
Yes, welcome back.
Yep, I just wanted to give you the name, the guy from ProTech that you
Yes.
guys can reach out
Mr.
to.
Chairman,
His
if I may.
name is Michael Watza, W-A-T-Z-A, and he's with Kitsch Attorneys and Counselors. They actually have a, let me see what it's called up here. They have a small cell ordinance sample
Right.
that I can send you guys.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, Ms. Mano, once I believe we are a member of ProTech.
We are a member of
Yes.
ProTech. I'll just let you know, Mr. Watson was instrumental in the drafting of these ordinances.
Oh, he was, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
so that's good. Thank you very
Yeah,
much. I just
yeah,
want,
we appreciate you bringing the ProTech to our attention. It is something that the city has been involved with for many, many years, and it's an excellent organization.
okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mano. Thank you, Mr. Toromina. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak for or against this item? We got one more. I want to make sure everyone is heard. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Pam Savello, 18683 Gary Lane. Just really quick, just wanted to point out that the 5G frequency is actually used as a weapon and it burns skin. Just pointing that out, that perhaps it's something we need to look into more. And there's actually no research done by all these cell companies as to what's happening. There's no more, they don't know what they're actually doing. It's the bottom line. They just want to create these towers so that you can get, download your video from YouTube faster? I mean, honestly, we're talking about a health issue, and I know you're kind of laughing, but it's true. That's
silly.
I have a daughter in middle school, and that's what they do on the bus. How fast can we get the latest joke or the latest picture or whatever? And they don't realize what they're actually doing. And so it's up to us as parents and moms, right? And just the city to look after all those that can't look after themselves. So thank you.
Very good point. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on this item? If not, I will close the public hearing, and a motion is in order.
Could I ask one more question?
You certainly can.
Would you tell me again, we are a member of ProTech?
We are.
And that this gentleman helped us write this ordinance? I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, the city has been active in the organization, I believe, since its inception, and Mr. Watsa is considered an expert in this area, and I know that he worked very closely with our legal department, and Mike Fisher in particular, with drafting these ordinances to make sure that they provided the city with absolutely the highest degree of authority that it can have based on the limitations imposed by the state law. We are creatures of the state, and to people who work in municipal government, anytime there's a threat to home rule or local authority, it's a challenge. It's not something we take lightly or fall to our knees on lightly. So ProTech has been very active in trying to counter the efforts in Lansing, the lobbying efforts to get these laws enacted. And unfortunately, that power was just too overwhelming, and as a result, we have a statute that imposes considerable constraints on municipalities. So that's where we're at right now, and so these ordinances are designed to give us as much authority as we possibly can on this issue.
Okay, that's what I want to clarify. I mean, while we're not approving the 5G, what we are approving is to get as much authority as we can possibly get.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's correct. And a suggestion earlier, and a moratorium typically is a great tool afforded to municipalities to deal with issues that they're not ready to handle. Unfortunately, PA 365 under Section 15 prohibits authorities from enacting moratoriums on these issues. So while it was a great suggestion and something that I'm sure communities would jump on the opportunity until they were able to fully understand this, unfortunately their hands are tied and they're unable to do that. The state has prevented them from, prevented us from.
Just for the record, that meeting with Haley Stevens is when? Could you tell us again when and where that meeting with Haley Stevens?
Oh, that's Friday, this Friday, the 25th, at 10 o'clock a.m., right here.
Right in City Hall. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Again, I will say a motion is in order. And again, this is a motion not to approve, as Mrs. Smiley pointed out, not to approve 5G, but to approve to approve language for an ordinance to go to the council regarding the control of 5G and small cell towers.
So with that in mind, I'll make an approving resolution that the request to amend Section 18.42A of the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543 as amended which regulates wireless communication facilities by removing the governing of small cells and creating a new zoning ordinance, section 18.42B, that would oversee the rules and technology of small cells, is hereby approved for the following reasons. The proposed language amendment would establish standards for the regulating small cells wireless facilities in compliance with recent enacted state law. This amendment would create procedural rules and other standards directly related to small cell wireless facilities and provide the city with the maximum authority available under the state law in connection with the deployment of small cell wireless facilities, and that the proposed language amendment will provide aesthetic considerations where small cell wireless facilities are in residential zoning districts within the PRDA district along Plymouth Road and with other established historic districts.
All right, is there support for that motion?
Support.
I have a motion by Mrs. Smiley, supported by Mr. Ventura, to approve the proposed language that we have in front of us for the small cell ordinance. Is there any discussion on the motion? Mr. Toromina, I also, just as part of discussion, want to note that as you were talking about ProTech, I believe current Councilwoman Kathy White was also heavily involved with a lot of the ProTech and wireless ordinances that we've had through the years, so she's quite an expert in this as well.
That is correct.
So something for our residents to be aware of as they go to city council to also be aware of.
Very good point.
Thank you, Mr. Toromina. Is there, again, any discussion on the motion? If not, if the secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mrs. Smiley.
Aye.
Mr. Ventura.
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Karen Magna votes aye. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye, motion passes. We'll go to city council with an approving recommendation. Thank you to the residents for coming out and speaking tonight. We really appreciate your comments. They all go into our record, which will go on to city council, and they do read those. But again, I would encourage you to continue to follow this issue at the city council level and attend their meetings as well. So thank you for coming tonight. And with that, we are done with our public hearing section of our agenda. We go to pending items number 3 on our agenda.
Which is petition 2019-09-02-13, and this is submitted by Children's Paradise, Inc., requesting waiver use approval pursuant to section 9.03J of the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543 as amended to operate a child daycare center at 9424 Newburgh Road, located on the southeast corner of Newburgh Road and Ann Arbor Trail in the northwest quarter of section 32.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I believe this item was tabled at our previous meeting, so I'll need a motion to remove this from the table.
I move that we remove it from the table.
All right, I heard a motion by Mrs. Smiley and
Support.
Mr. Long is supporting. If there's no objection, please show 6 to remove this item from the table. And we will now go to Mr. Toromina.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just point out that, refresh everyone's memories, that at the study meeting, we discussed a number of items, and the petitioner provided some additional information with respect to the hours of operation, signage, as well as improvements to the play area and landscaping. Covering the item of hours of operation, it was, the petitioner stated that after hearing some of the concerns expressed by the neighbors, that she would limit the hours, at least the evening hours, from what was originally proposed to be 9:45 p.m. closing time to a closing time now of 7 p.m. And there was some additional information provided regarding signage, although we didn't have really enough detail to review that. What I did was confirm with our legal department, and Mr. Fisher in particular, that the silhouette figures that were described at that meeting do in fact constitute signage. And that's something that would have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for approval. So as it stands now, those would not be something that are permitted. They would have to get special approval from the ZBA. Probably the biggest issue, however, was the issue of the environmental conditions of the site. And the petitioner was able to get a full copy of the report and submit that to us. We have provided that report in your packet, at least the executive summary. It does confirm that the site is still open, according to MDEQ's underground or leaking underground storage tank database. It is also deemed to be a facility, as the term is defined under the Michigan National Resources and Environmental Protection Act. We encourage the petitioner to seek advice relative to at least inquire with the state of Michigan licensing and regulatory affairs as to whether or not the conditions of the site might impose difficulties in getting a daycare license. I don't know whether or not she's been able to get that information, but that's really an update on from our last meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Tormina. Any questions for our planning staff? If not, the petitioner, I believe, is here. Good evening, Ms. Guest. We'll again ask for your name and address.
Felicia Guest, 35688 Garner Street, Romulus, Michigan, 48174.
Excellent, thank you and welcome back. And is there any new information that you need to provide to us?
Not at this time. I have sought out with the state to see about the environmental, and I haven't gotten an answer back yet. My licensing inspector is also looking over the paperwork. So at this point, I don't have an answer of moving forward with my petition.
Okay, regarding the state and
The state
and environmental.
regulations, and even if, what else is the owner gonna do if there's anything else that need to be done to close that out or make sure everything is fine. So at this point, I guess I'm still kind of in limbo until I get some answers back from my state counselor in whether the child care can even go there now.
Okay. All right, well, we appreciate that. And is there any other information that you need to or would like to provide to us regarding this petition?
Not at this time.
Okay, very good, thank you. Is there anybody on the commission who would like to ask any questions of our petitioner or staff? Smiley.
It's really for Mark, could we table it? Can we delay it?
Yeah.
I don't want her to lose her application, but I don't want her to get a glowing,
In deference to the petitioners and the situation she's under, it's critical, I think, to this body to find out, the issue with the licensing authority.
absolutely.
But it's your discretion. You could table it indefinitely, and when she's able to get a response back, then we can place this back on a future agenda. I don't know what your time frame is with the landlord, though. Sometimes it's restricted, so maybe we could ask that question in terms of what her due diligence period is.
Would you like us to table it for a while?
I would. And the time moving forward with the owner is pretty much, he knows that I can't do anything until this portion is done. He was supposed to be here tonight. Unfortunately, he
He's
isn't.
here.
Oh, is he?
No,
Oh, he isn't here.
that's sarcasm.
Okay, okay. So, the realtor and I are going to check and see, why wasn't he here to answer the questions that he needed to be responsible for? And I'm glad that you're giving me more time to try to get this rectified, so thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move we table it indefinitely.
All right, do we have support?
Support.
We have a motion to table from Mrs. Smiley, and it's supported by Mrs. McHugh. Again, there is no discussion on tabling motions, and this would be to table indefinitely. That will allow the petitioner to come forward to us when she's ready to move forward with this item. So with that, Mr. Secretary, can you please call the roll on a tabling motion?
Mrs. Smiley.
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Ventura.
Aye.
Chair Magno says aye. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye, motion passes, item has been tabled. Thank you for coming, Ms. Guss.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Good luck.
And with that, we have one more item on our agenda. I believe it's approval of the minutes.
And it is the approval of the minutes of the 1,149th public hearing and regular meeting held by the Planning Commission on October 8th, 2019.
All right, thank you. And I believe we have all commissioners present for that meeting. I'm not mistaken.
That's true.
So is there support for the motion? Or, excuse
What's
me,
a
I mean,
motion
is there a
made?
motion
Yeah.
to approve? That's by Mr. Long
So moved.
and supported by Mr. Ventura. So is there, I don't think we have any discussion. If there's no objection, we can safely show 6 to approve the minutes. And we will mark that as approved. And that takes us to the end of our agenda. Is there any other business to come before the commission at this time?
One thing, I want to thank you
Ms. Smiley?
for coming this evening.
Oh, you're welcome, my pleasure.
Yes. And for a lawyer, you did a great job explaining.
Oh, thank you.
For a lawyer.
It might be a disgrace to my profession, but I'm glad to be of service to you.
No, I'm very glad. You were able to put it in terms that even a regular person could understand, and I appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
That is a bridge that is often hard to gap. So with that, thank you, Ms. Smiley, for your comments. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Long and supported by Mrs. McHugh to adjourn. Again, if there's no objection, we will show 6 to approve that. I don't hear any objections, so that has been approved, and that takes us to the end of our agenda. Let's see, I would like to thank Livonia Television staff for their contribution to our meeting tonight, and we will be adjourning our meeting with no further business at 8:21 p.m. Good night, Livonia.